8. We are here in room 1070 of City Hall. It's just about 3 p.m. and I'm Councilmember Eric Garcetti, the chair of the committee. We are expecting other members, but first I'd like to open up number 5 and move to receive and file that. Is there any objection? Seeing none, so ordered. And we will wait for Mr. Zion for the next 4, so we'll take a quick recess. He had to recuse himself on that one, so. I'll ask for general public comment. Do we have anybody on general public comment? Not on public comment on specific items, but the general nature. We don't have any cards. I see nobody, so we'll close our general public comment. If we can take up the first item, please.
Item number 1 is the Chief Legislative Analyst report relative to the city's position on any efforts to reprogram First 5 funds pursuant to Resolution Gruel-Huizar-Garcetti.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Clay Carter from the CLA's office.
How you doing, Clay?
Great, thank
Good.
you. The First 5 program is a California program established with the approval of Proposition 10 in 1998. The mission of First 5 is to promote, support, and improve the early development of children from the prenatal stage to 5 years of age. And there's been a recent development. State Senator Dave Cox introduced a bill, SB X15, which seeks to reprogram the First 5 funding, basically eliminating the First 5 program, transferring the funds to the general fund, which would be, those funds would be directed towards healthcare services. And the CLA's recommendation is to adopt the resolution attached to our report.
Okay.
To oppose the efforts.
Yes, to oppose the efforts.
And this is on the 20% piece that's the state funds only? Or this would be across the
No,
board?
it breaks the funding. The Proposition 10 added a 50-cent tax to
Right.
cigarettes, and then that directs 20% to state, 80% to the counties.
There was some controversy about where that money was going. The tax, 50-cent tax.
Well, where it
What
was.
those funds were being used for.
That was
They
last year, that
tracked
was
it
some of the,
and found that some of those funds weren't being used for their intended purpose. Now they want to divert it to something else. It's designed for a specific purpose, and it should be used for that. But somehow there was some other, remember that?
it was the television ads, I believe, that they were doing. There was a little bit of controversy about.
There's some folks from First 5 here that can speak to that if you'd like.
Would you remind Mr. Zion what he's talking about, if you don't mind? Come on forward.
No, I know what I'm talking about, I just need the scandalous part.
Thank you, council members. I'm Carol Baker. I'm the Public Affairs Director from First 5 LA. Thank you very much for considering this today. I can speak to that. There have First 5 commissions. Each county in the state has their own commission, and each commission is filled with local leaders appointed by the Board of Supervisors of those particular counties and representatives of various county departments. So decisions are made locally, and some decisions that may have been made by other counties have received some press lately. Particularly, there was a San Francisco Chronicle article about some decisions that had been made in San Francisco, and it was with regard to a parent action program. Very small allocation of money, but they were granting programs, funds to parents to do various things, some things that generated a little bit of public scrutiny, and they were not means testing those programs. I can say that in Los Angeles County, our needs, as you know, are tremendous in this county, and our programs serve the most underserved communities in Los Angeles County. In the city of Los Angeles, that's 14,000 children and families involved in literacy, school readiness, and healthy births programs. Countywide, that's about 177,000 families in 2006, 2007. We fund the Healthy Kids health insurance program for children who wouldn't otherwise qualify for health insurance. We have programs that screen young children for developmental delays and provide treatment as needed. We provide pediatric dental care. You might be aware of the fact that most children miss school for reasons having to do with tooth pain, more than asthma, more than other reasons. So this investment in the early years is critical to both promoting good health but also closing the achievement gap in schools. We also provide substance abuse treatment programs for pregnant moms and prevention services for children at risk in foster care. We expand access to preschool in Los Angeles County, and we combat the achievement gap through a lot of school readiness strategies and family literacy programs. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I will say that by and large throughout the state, I can't speak for other counties specifically, but most First Fives engage in means testing, and that the program that received the publicity, the press in the Chronicle, is probably more of an exception rather than the rule.
I thought there was something more local regarding the alleged misappropriation of funds.
There hasn't been anything in Los Angeles County that I'm aware of. I've been at First Five for a year, and I did a lot of research on the organization before I came.
And then it's $125 million, 2006, 2007, $125,602,000, which is a substantial amount of money.
In Los Angeles County?
Right.
Yes, that's accurate,
That's
yes.
the number that I received in the,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, then it says 126, and then it says the total county allocation for 06, 07 is $526 million.
That's for all counties in the state, total.
That would be county's allocation, I think, yeah.
Total county allocation.
Right.
for-
And our revenue is declining because, and this is a good thing, the smoking rate is declining in California. Also, in Los Angeles County, our birth rate is declining, and this funding is a portion based on birth rate. So our commission is very focused on creating systems changes and improving the lives of young children, but also making sure that the programs that we fund will be sustained into the future after First Five funding is no longer available. So a lot of our grants are aimed at capacity building within these organizations, and I know that we've met with a number of council member staff, including yours, Mr. Garcetti, and just looking at the service sites in each district is pretty phenomenal. We have quite a few in each district, and we certainly would be happy to meet with yours as well, Councilmember Zine.
Okay. Well, so once it goes to the general fund, it gets lost.
That's right, and it takes away the local control and discretion. And right now, yes, the state is facing, a severe budget deficit. And when we've met with legislators, we've said First Fives want to be part of the solution. Let us work with our local elected officials, with the cities, with the counties, to mitigate the impact of what are going to be pretty severe budget cuts locally. And that's our plan. And I know that all counties are trying to do that, and we certainly are trying as well.
Okay. Okay.
I'll move the
Move approval?
CLA recommendation.
Okay. Mr. Weiss has joined us for the record, so on item number 1, join the recommendation on Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Weezar's motion on the First Five? Yep, okay. So be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much.
We'll send that to we'll get it through council, and then we'll send it to the mayor as quickly as possible.
Okay, sure.
Now is the appointed hour for Mike Fuhrer legislation to take up item number 2.
Item number 2 is CLA report relative to the city's position on AB 2784 Fuhrer, which would require the installation of an alcohol ignition interlock device on any vehicle owned or operated by a person convicted of driving under the influence pursuant to Resolution Zine Rule.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
AB 2784 would require the installation of...
Introduce yourself for the record.
Oh,
It's
I'm
just part
sorry.
of- I know who you are, but
Yes,
just for everybody.
I'm Annie Dino from the CLA's
Thank you.
office. So AB 2784 would require the installation of an ignition interlock device in any vehicle owned or operated by a person convicted of a DUI offense. An ignition interlock device is similar to a breathalyzer, which is installed in the vehicle's dashboard. Before the vehicle can be started, the driver must breathe into the device. If the result is over a programmed blood alcohol concentration, the vehicle will not start. Studies have shown that the ignition interlock devices are effective when installed and reduce DUI recidivism and alcohol-related collisions by an average of 65%.
And those were based in states that have this, or just in
Yes, I think
model?
it was of the 6 states surveyed that have this legislation. And currently, the status of legislation is on April 9th, it passed in the Public Safety Committee, and it's currently in appropriations.
Well, both these gentlemen are on the public safety, oh, no, you mean the state public safety
Yes,
committee? Oh, okay,
public
I thought we had it in our own public safety committee. Okay, Mr. Zine, I know you're the maker of the motion. Anything you want to?
I
add to it?
think it's a wonderful idea. I commend Mr. Fuhr for the idea. I worked with Mothers Against Drunk Driving for a long time. I ran the drunk driving operation 6.5 years in San Fernando Valley, and many intoxicated motorists repeat that offense, and we're either going to let them drive and hurt innocent people,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
we're going to protect innocent people. We've had some recent crashes on the freeway, wrong-way drivers under the influence. So I think if we want to get serious about attacking the drunk driving problem, that this is a wonderful approach, that it will be mandatory. You get arrested, there's going to be some consequences. This is obviously after conviction for the DUI offense, and the laws have been tougher and tougher, but we still continue to have the problem. So I would move that that matter be adopted, and
Okay.
hope it passes the Senate and gets introduced.
Sounds good, Mr. Weiss. Anything? No, sir? All right, we'll go ahead and move approval. Mr. Zine's motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item, please.
Item 3 is a CLA report relative to the city's position on Initiative 07-0094, the Safe Neighborhoods Initiative pursuant to Resolution Cardenas Parks Garcetti. Felipe Chavez, CLA's
Okay.
office is here.
Well, we actually start with our public comment, and then we'll bring you back up. Okay. Lisa Leon is our first speaker. Lisa would like to come forward, and then Sindeka Shabazz. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name is Lisa Leon, and I'm here today to support the resolution. I'm a community organizer with All of Us or None and In a Way of Life Reentry Project. Our organization provides housing and support services for women coming home from prisons and jails, and we're fighting for the rights of formerly incarcerated people. I'm a former resident of A New Way of Life. A New Way of Life helped me to get back into society by providing a safe place to live and helping me to set some obtainable goals for myself and for my life. Now, 5 years later, I am fortunate enough to work at A New Way of Life and not only help other women, but also work to change some of the policies that create barriers to successful reentry. The Runner Initiative will only create more problems for the people we work with each and every day. This initiative proposes to direct billions of dollars to prisons, probation, and police, when what is actually needed are more programs like A New Way of Life and opportunities as well. We're especially concerned about the provision that will increase background checks for people seeking housing subsidies in order to deny affordable housing to people with recent convictions. This is the kind of policy that has contributed to California's recidivism rate of 70%. I hope you vote in favor of this resolution and join the community in finding real solutions that will reduce recidivism, improve public safety, and increase successful reentry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Shabazz?
Good afternoon. My name is Sadika Shabazz, and on behalf of the Children's Defense Fund California, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. Children's Defense Fund has worked for 35 years to protect and improve the lives of children through policy advocacy. Now, as experts on policies affecting the lives of children, Children's Defense Fund California stands in strong opposition to the so-called Safe Neighborhoods Initiative, or the Runner Initiative. We feel that the Runner Initiative will unnecessarily criminalize children at an even younger age, and it diverts resources away from prevention and from early intervention. Now, the research that we've done tells us that prevention and early intervention are sound policies, or policies that are based on prevention and early intervention are sound policies because they reduce crime and community violence. But more importantly, this investment in prevention and in youth produces strong and healthy, engaged youth that stay out of the juvenile justice system and out of the prison system and go on to become productive adults. This hasn't been the case in a lot of areas, and some of the numbers speak to that. In 2003, California spent over $28,000 per prisoner, but only $7,500 per public school pupil, which is a nearly 4-to-1 ratio. In 2006, California arrested over 232,000 juveniles, which is the equivalent of 600 juvenile arrests each day. Now, instead of prioritizing spending to prevent youth from entering the juvenile justice system and eventually the criminal justice system, the Runner Initiative proposes even more spending on California prisons and policies that will actually funnel our youth into these prisons. I brought a copy of a recently released report by the Children's Defense Fund called America's Cradle to Prison Pipeline. I brought copies to leave with you, but if you guys can see this from here, this is a picture of a young man, or a little boy, I should say, actually 11 years old, being processed and fingerprinted. He's a gang member, and he was processed and fingerprinted for possession of marijuana. Now, my time is up. Well,
If I could wrap up.
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up really quickly, but basically, just one of the provisions of the initiative proposes trying certain youth charged with different crimes at the age of 14 as adults. And any of us who've worked with teenagers or even just know a teenager knows that 14-year-olds are not adults. They don't think like adults. They don't have the emotional, cognitive, or psychological capacity of adults. We're urging council members to vote in favor of the Cardenas Parks resolution to oppose the Runner Initiative, because we have to invest in our children. Criminalizing them at earlier and earlier ages is not the solution. We need to find solutions that look at prevention and early intervention to support our most valuable, but are also our most vulnerable asset, and that's our children.
Great.
Thank you.
So much, Mr. Bass. Appreciate your comments. Damon Azali Rojas and Noreen McClendon. Your next two speakers.
Hello, my name is Damon Azali Rojas, and thank you, Councilman Garcetti, for adding your name to this motion. I work with the Labor Community Strategy Center and also represented the statewide Defeat the Runner Initiative Coalition. And at this particular time when this is coming up, it's pretty crazy when we have a $15 billion shortfall, and the solutions to that are dropping people off health care for Medi-Cal for patients, no COLA increases for people on SSI, and cutting welfare grants. At the same time, the Runner Initiative would then put $1 billion the first year from the general fund, which would then expand some of the shortfalls that are coming in the future to police, prisons, and probation. And then each year after that, $500 million. So that then would assume more cuts to the social safety net, which is actually failing a lot of Californians as we speak now. And I think secondarily, besides the budget issues, a lot of it is around the laws that then that are racially discriminatory, that have blacks and Latinos in prison at higher numbers. So since 1980, there's been a above 700% increase in the number of prisoners in California. So now we have 176,000 prisoners in California prisons and jails, and that's some of the highest in the U.S., but also some of the highest in the world. 67% of those prisoners are black and Latino. 60% of those on California's 3 strikes are black, and 70% of those are there for technical parole violations. So we don't need more laws that incarcerate more people for more time, and this is what this will actually do. So we encourage you to pass this along to the full council for a motion to add your name to the opponents, the growing list of opponents that have already signed their name to this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Eric.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. My name is Noreen McClendon. I'm the Executive Director of Concerned Citizens of South Central Los Angeles, and I wanted to urge your support of the resolution in opposition to the Runner Initiative. The Runner Initiative is designed to produce anything but safer neighborhoods. Its proponents believe that the California voters are easily led astray by calling it the Safer Neighborhoods Initiative. In reality, this initiative is merely a few misguided politicians' effort to appear tough on crime. Unfortunately, it is based in practices that have failed miserably for the past 25 years. Longer prison sentences, younger prisoners, less resources for education and alternative education and arts programs. The only thing that has been accomplished by the tough on crime rhetoric has been an increased prison population and unsafe neighborhoods. If Mr. Runner and his supporters want safer neighborhoods, the formula is simple. Invest in youth in a meaningful way. In America, we spend billions of dollars annually to look younger, but we hate young people. We don't believe in them or invest in them. We don't put our money where our mouth is. We fail them in education because there is not enough funding. We fail them in programs designed to keep them off the streets after school. We fail to sufficiently fund programs that would deter borderline youth away from gangs. Somehow, though, we can always find money for wars, the war on drugs, the war on gangs, the war in Iraq, but we can never find the funding to invest in America's most precious asset, its youth. Let's have the courage to stand up and say enough criminalization of our youth. Let's say enough suppression with no intervention and prevention. Let's stop advocating on behalf of children only when as a means to criminalize adult behavior. Let's advocate for things that will really mean improvements in their lives. These are not new ideas. The City of LA has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars studying the problem. All of the studies say the same thing. Los Angeles cannot arrest its way out of the gang epidemic. It needs to invest in education, jobs, and recreational programs. It needs to invest in the areas where disinvestment and the wars on drugs and gangs have only served to destroy families and leave children to fend for themselves. The real first step you can make is to support adoption of the resolution to defeat the Runner Initiative. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Very nicely said. Okay, Felipe, you want to come forward? Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Got, is this Kim McGill? Come on forward. That's all right. Just in time.
My name is Kim McGill. I'm from the Youth Justice Coalition. We really want to thank you guys for considering this resolution, very important resolution brought by Councilman Parks and Cardenas. I want to start by just telling a story, a recent county jail story, because I think it impacts a lot of the young people that are going to be affected by the Runner Initiative were it to pass. As you know, the Youth Justice Coalition, all of us been arrested or our family members been incarcerated, and we have a number of members that are in the juvenile system as well as the members that are just crossed that line of 18 and are now in the adult system. And we had several of our members that have spent recent time in county jail, where their first 2 or 3 days, there's 20 people in a 4-person cell, where they fight for a bed, where the people that are the smallest, with the least experience in the system, usually get the bed, which means that you're on the floor with your head at the foot of the toilet, where the toilets are overflowing with excrement and urine, you can imagine, where the cells are so dirty because of the overcrowding that you're sleeping on a 1-inch mattress of spit and sweat and blood and excrement. And that you're in those conditions sometimes for days and weeks. The Runner Initiative means that 14-year-old young people charged with a gang-related crime would go automatically to county jail. When the YJC first started 4 years ago, one of the first campaigns we had was to close down the juvenile module at county jail. So even if the county jail proposed to put young people separate, because under law they have to keep them separated from adults, what those young people went through was 23.5-hour lockdown in a dark cell with no sunlight, no windows. They got 1 day a week, or 1 day every 2 weeks on the roof in a cage, much like the cages that they have at the Humane Society for dogs. And they had a half hour in the cage. I'm really emotional. I can hear it in my voice, and it's rare when I testify to City Council that I have this much emotion in my voice. But I think this is the most dangerous law that I've ever seen in my lifetime, which is short term, or that I've ever witnessed in history, through history books or through California's history. I think we've already, can I just finish?
Yeah, I can see that, sure.
I think we've already exported all our gang laws worldwide, Prop 21 worldwide, 3 strikes nationwide. But this bill makes those bills look like mosquito bites and will mean for young people and families the total devastation of any kind of resources for our communities and the massive lockup of everyone in our community.
I see. Appreciate your testimony today. Our last speaker is Clarissa Wu.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Clarissa Wu, and I'm the Senior Policy Coordinator with the ACLU of Southern California. I apologize for being a bit late, but the ACLU of Southern California is a proud organization to be joining with all of these different organizations in the room. We are strongly opposed to the Runner Initiative, and we look forward to working with the City Council to also go on record as opposed. The ACLU strongly opposes the Runner Initiative because in addition to throwing billions of dollars into failed policies of mass incarceration, we're particularly concerned that the initiative also abandons basic protections considered fundamental to our criminal justice system. The initiative would erode the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses at trial by allowing some out-of-court statements into the courtroom. This thereby really restricts and goes against our fundamental Sixth Amendment rights to an open trial. And the initiative would also remove kids as young as 14 from their rehabilitative focuses of the juvenile system, even for nonviolent gang-related crimes, and try them as adults and put them into prisons with adults. We find that this is extremely inhumane and in the wrong step for the state of California, as well as other policies that are being geared across the nation. As a strong supporter of civil rights and social justice, the ACLU has also been working to secure basic safety net programs through very concerted efforts year after year in budget cuts throughout the state, and we know that billions of dollars funneled away from effective policies, community-based strategies, is not what California needs at this time. So we're very happy to be here with all of our different organizations, and we hope to work with you to defeat the Runner Initiative in November. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll try for a third time. Come on up, Felipe.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Felipe Chavez with the CLA's office. The CLA recommends approval of the attached revised resolution initiated by Councilman Tony Cardenas to oppose a statewide initiative called the Safe Neighborhoods Act. This initiative would eliminate existing fund transfers to the California State Federal General Fund and Department of Education and increase funding for law enforcement and suppression purposes. The initiative would provide a total of $965 million per year for suppression and prosecution purposes. The LAO, the State Legislative Analyst Office, indicates that the initiative includes penalty enhancements that could lead to more offenders being incarcerated for longer periods of time, resulting in additional law enforcement costs and costs to operate the prison system. The LAO further indicates that there may be an additional $100 million annual increase within a decade due to the requirement that program funding be adjusted each year for inflation. In addition, the LAO estimates that due to the redistribution of the state penalty fund, there may be a $13 million loss in general revenues per year. The city recognizes the importance of funding criminal justice and law enforcement programs. However, the city has recently established policies that define how the city addresses gang prevention, intervention, and suppression, and has determined that to effectively reduce gang crime, there must be a concerted effort to fund all three components. Also, in the past, the city has opposed legislation that only includes funding for suppression. We therefore recommend that the city oppose the Safe Neighborhoods Act by adopting the attached resolution.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I certainly I seconded this, so I think all of us here are in favor of kind of smart law enforcement initiatives. Anything that we can do to continue to reduce youth violence is something we've been strongly on the record. It strikes me as a particularly difficult time in the state to impose more dedicated funding at a time, which just means that it will come out of our school system, our healthcare dollars, and others. We increasingly see parts of the state budget doing that, and this would go even farther to take us in a direction where the state legislature is handcuffed. So I want to state that at the outset, because there's people who have different opinions on some of the individual items in this proposed initiative who are strongly opposed to it for that reason. And I think that anybody on any side of the political spectrum can understand that. As well as just on the content and the substance of what this would do, and how it seems to be very both penny and pound foolish in terms of where the money would go to, that there is nothing put in intervention, prevention to balance this out. And I think that was part of the initiative, or sorry, the motion that was put forward by Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Parks. So it would be my motion to move forward with this. Mr. Zion, do you have any questions on this that you'd like?
A few. The fact that no determination has been made as to whether this measure has qualified. We're saying something on the measure that we don't know if it's going to qualify.
They've submitted the signatures, or they're still gathering them?
No, they're still working on it. They still don't have all the signatures.
Okay.
So why can't we hold this on the table in this committee until we find out if it qualifies or not? If it doesn't qualify, it's a moot point. If it does qualify, and some questions I have, Chief Bratton, does he support it or not? Does the district attorney support it? Does the city attorney support it? We hear from Chief Bratton that the city is the safest place since the 50s.
I'm sorry.
Those questions, and I don't want to go into all those questions. The lady mentioned the 70% recidivism. I know that there's a continuing problem with the state budget. I'm talking about early release of prisoners into the county. Sheriff Baca is concerned what's going to happen with those people when they get out of prison. Are they going to then fall in the local sheriff's department? It talks about money for law enforcement, $965 million per year for certain law enforcement and prosecution purposes. I mean, there's a lot of questions that have answers to be brought forward, but if it's not going to qualify, you know, we're saying something that's still there. Why can't we hold this and hold on to it and monitor it? And if it doesn't qualify, it's a moot point. If it does qualify, then we can bring out the concerns and answer all the questions and find if the chief of police doesn't support it, the DA doesn't support it, the sheriff of the county doesn't support it. But right now we're saying, well, maybe it's going to qualify, maybe it's not going to qualify, and there's all these unresolved questions that really don't have to be answered if it's not qualified. That's my concern on it. I think we should have
Mr.
all
Cardenas
members of the
have staff,
committee.
does City 6 have staff here? Does not. I know
I
they've
think we should-
requested
I
a
think we need-
placeholder for the 11th of June full council about it. I think they felt strongly that we should be taking a stance
How do we
on,
take a stand on something that hasn't been approved? Or
the language has been approved by.
The language has been approved. It's already been submitted to them.
But if they don't have the signatures, it's not going to...
They don't have the signatures. They're still reviewing. They have the signatures. They're reviewing.
Gathered, they haven't yet.
But if the signatures haven't been validated...
Yeah, exactly. They have not been
That's
validated.
the
They're
question.
currently.
So it's an initiative process. If the initiative doesn't prove fruitful, then it's a moot point. That's my concern, is that the signatures may not validate. And I don't know if the urgency on this, once the signatures qualify, then there's an issue. If they don't qualify, there is no issue. This is an initiative process. And they submitted, I don't know how many signatures. If they submitted the signatures and they're validated, then I say we raise the signal up and say we've got to do something, pro or con. But right now, I think it's premature why we're putting it on the placeholder before we know it's even done. It's like you're going to invite someone over for dinner, you have no food to feed them.
Thank you. You can make the opposite argument, too, that it's a good insurance policy to move forward with right now and to have in place. If it's not there, it becomes a moot point.
I'd like to know
We
what the
didn't lose
chief of police
anything.
says, I'd like to know what the DA says, I'd like to know what the sheriff says, I'd like to know their concern. And if they're saying that this is the safest time, are the rules now taking care of business? And when the state says that they're going to release prisoners early and the impact on the county, is the county going to need these dollars to house prisoners that have been released from the state? I mean, there's a lot of unresolved issues, and this is a serious matter when we're talking about crime.
Right.
We're talking about the impact. And I don't want to take money away from education. I don't want to take money away from the general fund. I don't support that. If they want to, take the 50-cent tax on something and apply it to this, 50 cents on gasoline, which will be then
Well, the way it's written,
$6
it does take it. It doesn't propose any new tax of any sort,
No,
any
no,
revenue
it's
source.
stripping.
It just.
And I don't support the stripping of money.
So
from other
even on
programs.
those, and just by way of what this committee has done recently on Prop 98, I believe we took that position before the signatures were verified, Prop 98 and 99.
But we analyzed 98 and 99, and California cities and a number of other entities said that 98 is not going to be good, 99 is going to be good. Those were already qualified for the ballot, and they're before the voters in the upcoming election. So the concern I have is, are we premature, with all due respect to the chair? And if we do wait to find out the signatures validate, what is the problem if we wait until it's validated? Don't we have a stronger voice at that point and then have all these answers? So tell me what Chief Bratton says. Tell me what the DA says. Tell me what the sheriff says. Tell me the impact on our local jurisdiction. That's the
You
question
know,
I have.
any of the, I know we have organizations here that have clearly
Right, no,
taken
I did
positions. You know, they're-
reach out to the city department, city attorney, and the police department, but I did not receive a,
Because what I've heard is people against it. I'd like to hear the side, if Bratton says I'm supporting, and the city attorney says I'm supporting, the DA says I'm supporting, I'd like to hear all we hear is one side of the story.
Right.
And I come from law enforcement. I've spent near 40 years in law enforcement. I can see some good points, I can see some negative points. I want to see the whole focus before we jump into something on a state measure that could have dramatic impacts on the city of Los Angeles, especially if people are getting let out of prison because there's no money to house them. I'm talking about people who've committed serious crimes, murder, robbery, rape. We're talking about DNA testing and more people getting arrested. What are we going to do? Let those people out and prey on more victims? Those questions are all part and parcel of this.
Well, I would recommend doing this. We've had a number of cities that have taken positions on this already. San Francisco, Richmond, Oakland, Berkeley have all taken opposed positions so far. If you don't want to move forward right now with it, Mr. Zine, I think I will do a recommendation from the chair, and you can have a neutral or no position. And what we
I'd
could
like to get all
have,
three votes on this, too. I think we should have the chair of public safety, which obviously is an issue, since it's public safety, I think our public safety chair, who's at the meeting, who stepped out, I think we should wait for him to come and voice his concern.
Is he expected back?
I mean, he is the chair of public safety. I'd like to have his input on it. He's the chair of the public safety
Well,
committee.
why don't we hold it on the table then for a second, see if he's expected back, and we'll take up the next item if everybody sits tight, and we'll see if we can move that forward. Absolutely.
Mr. Chair.
You're very welcome. Item number 4, please.
Item number 4 is a CLA report relative to the city's position on SB 1236 Padilla, which would repeal the sunset date for the collection of a levy for the purposes of funding pediatric trauma centers pursuant to Resolution Alarcon-Smith. Cheryl Benares from our office is here.
Okay. Cheryl?
Good afternoon, Cheryl Benares from the CLA's office. The resolution seeks support of SB 1236 that will extend the sunset date for the collection of a levy for the purposes of funding pediatric trauma centers from January 1st, 2009 to January 1st, 2014. Existing law authorizes counties to collect an additional $2 penalty assessment for every $10 on every fine, penalty, and forfeiture for criminal offenses, including those related to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Act and all vehicle code violations except parking offenses, for the purposes of providing funds for emergency medical services. The provisions of the additional assessment sunset on January 1st, 2009. This assessment is in addition to the existing 20% penalty assessment from various other sources, including revenues from tobacco taxes and fees paid by those attending traffic violator schools. The revenue generated is deposited into the Emergency Medical Services Fund that designates 15% of the revenue for pediatric trauma centers. This bill was recently amended on April 3rd, 2008 to include the repeal date of January 1st, 2014. When the bill was introduced, it had extended the operation of these provisions indefinitely. However, the author's office reports that the bill was amended to include the 2014 date at the request of the chair of the Assembly Public Safety Committee. This bill passed the Senate on April 21st, 2008, and is scheduled to be heard in the Assembly Public Safety Committee on June 10th.
Okay. Mr. Zine?
Eloquently stated, I support that matter and move it forward.
All right. Without objection, we'll move forward on number 4. Thank you very much. Appreciate your analysis. Number 5 we took up, so we're just awaiting to hear back. Do we have any word whether or not Mr. Weiss is expected? Okay, all right. We'll just sit tight. Hold on 1 second.
Let's just wait. Number 3.
Mhm. Here, it's not, just, see if we can help. Just get that, just, my understanding is there's some law enforcement groups, I think we all know those are supportive of it. But not looking very close to like state legislators that what totally screws over for the general fund.
No,
Yeah,
actually,
for-
it's
and that's the big
Yeah,
piece.
that's bad. But normally when they do something, they come up with some other funding.
Yeah, I know, that's why this is stupid, but that's good. Renner wants to,
What's he want to do?
I don't know, I think that's Ren's state law. Attorney General or something, I think he might be a.
Should I do a motion to put a new car in what he's trying, new Prius? Who's going to pay for it? So it has some serious issues.
So, the league, the California League of City, or League of California Cities hasn't taken a position with you. They're really, really, really concerned because some of the state legislators have been positioning, they're basing their budget and having this pass.
Thanks.
So, it's actually not the wisest use of money.
Oh, I agree with that. Anyway, taking money out of programs.
But it doesn't, it's not.
You're taking money out of general funds, not a good thing to do. You take money out of general fund, it's. And then on the second one, education. Was it education on the other one? Yeah, state general fund and education. Let's forward to next week.
That's not happening for like 3 weeks. I have been informed that there's been an emergency in Mr. Weiss's district, and he's not expected to return, which leaves the two of us, and somewhat unresolved question, but I would move forward with the resolution today. I think we can get some of the answers. Mr. Zine, I would propose, no matter how he votes, I'm not going to influence him one way or the other, but no matter how he votes, that we can have a more extensive list of who's in opposition and who's in favor of this, and then we can probably talk about, I'll reopen the ability to hear some of that testimony when we bring that to council on the 11th, is that right, of June? And will we have any idea about the signature qualification by then? Do they have any expected date?
We can monitor that. The Secretary of State is in the process of checking this, so that's going to all the counties, having all the counties verify the signatures, and then get back. They're going through the random sample process right now, and so it's a matter of them reporting back.
Okay.
And I'm in communication with them, so I'll be happy to report back on that.
Yeah, I don't want to take a position until those questions are answered. I want to hear what the chief of police says, what the DA says. I want to hear, and I understand the folks that are here not supporting and opposing it, but I want to hear from the other side, and also from our public safety chair, who's the chair of the public safety committee, what the issues are from his perspective. So, I mean, I don't want to take a position, yay or nay, and do I abstain? And
sure, yeah. That's what I was going to say. You could just take a note. No, I could just do it as a communication from the chair that is a minority report.
You can do either one, two ways. Either you can do a committee report with no recommendation, or you can do a communication from each of you.
I don't really want
and his communication would be no position. Mine would be to move forward. It's not in opposition.
It's not in opposition.
It's not
in support. What it is there's unanswered questions that have to be answered in addition to what our chair of the public.
So why don't we move that as two communications, one from the member, one from the chair? Okay.
One without recommendation.
Yeah, one without recommendation, one with, and we'll two for the council, and one absence in the vote.
You can get those questions answered.
Yes.
From the other folks.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you all for taking the time to be here. We'll look forward to seeing you in council. I believe that's going to be on the 11th. Okay. Thank you. This meeting of the Rules of Government is adjourned.
Sorry.
I'll make sure.
I just had to sneak in since I was too close not to.